This week's show will cover news and updates, part 2 of my visit to the Venus Project, and a new segment called Did You Know? For news and updates this week, we have two things. First is show formats, this show. This all started in TeamSpeak about 2 years ago, and it was all audio-based. No video, no effects, nothing like that. And we were getting 50 to 100 and even sometimes 300 listens per week. Pretty good. But 1 year later, we were able to move this whole thing to the Google Hangouts, which was then live streamed to YouTube. And immediately we got 1,000 views, which is a huge improvement, tenfold improvement increase. Later on, we got 1,500 views on a weekly basis, and now we're up to closer to 2,000 views per week, which is obviously an improvement. Even last week's show is already at 2,500 views, so we're working on it. And as you can tell by this show, I'm constantly changing the formats, I'm constantly testing new things out, and a lot of the effects you'll see in this show are going to be similar to one of the 4 formats that I want to move this show towards. Alright, so the 4 formats of the shows, obviously Jock and Roxanne, when they're able to come on, we want to host them. And also the panelists, the Google Hangouts, where you have panelists talk about a specific topic within the resource-based economy or the Venus Project. The second format is the POC Q&A, and you'll see that one time per month. It's the first Sunday of each month is when they put on their POC Q&A. And that is done by a Google moderator, where the community asks questions and the POCs are getting a very good practice at answering them, and obviously the people are getting the responses. The third format of a show is a specific educational video, and that's going to be on behaviorism, scaling, perspective, accurate history, and I'll list some more in the description. And the last one is something similar that you see right here, and that is RBE News, and I want to get a green screen. I want to use a better camera. We need updated camera, we need green screen, we need lights. We have some software that can take care of it. We probably need a much better computer to handle these types of things. So those are the 4 formats. The panelists, or Jock and Roxanne, is one show. POC Q&As, every first Sunday of the month. Educational video, one time per month. That's on behaviorism, or something like that. And then finally RBE News, and that's a full news style format that this one, I would say is about 70% close to that. Each show format needs researchers, scriptwriters, editors, correspondents, and more. If you're interested, please email admin@thevenusproject.com or contact me directly through Skype at sean.hodgins1. Both of those will be in the description below this video. The other news we have is the new Twitter campaign to get Larry King Live to host Jock and Roxanne on their show. Jock was on a few times in the 1970s and has not been on since. So let's get him on. What you'll have to do is tweet at Aura TV, please consider inviting the Venus Project founders, Jacques Fresco and Roxanne Meadows, www.thevenusproject.com, hashtag #Book'emLarry, and you can copy and paste that from the description below this video.
Well, when you study medicine, they send you to a separate environment. You don't bring your parents there. Say, I don't want my daughter doing surgery. A surgeon learns to do surgery. Yeah. An architect learns to build houses. An engineer learns to build bridges. He learns the formulas necessary to put things together. And when they join together, he's also taught how to make a joint strong enough to hold them together. So the more information a child has, the broader their scope.
How is it possible for them to join 2 pieces of wood together without 1,000 likes on Facebook or 1,000 comments or responses from people who are not qualified to be speaking on this?
Well, you don't need to work on the parents except on TV. On TV you show soap operas of the old way and the newer way, a little bit, so they pick up some of the new. And every soap opera has a little bit of new information.
Like a 10% increment towards...
And whatever is required to change them.
All right. That's good on
And
that
your
one.
parents would say to the children, I don't have enough information in that area to discuss it intelligently with you. The parents will learn from TV, but they don't like to learn from their children. They can take it
experienced
better
that myself.
when it's presented on TV, because you're not embarrassed. When you ask your dad, do you know what makes a tsunami? He says, no. And then you inform him, he's going to ask you a lot of questions. And the more questions you answer, the less apt they will feel to raise you. And they will know what society is doing. They won't be surprised at the making children that bright. We make them dumb today by false information, by falsifying information. And we tell them stories about imaginative things that never occurred. We teach them religion, which is not verifiable. And we will tell children that unverifiable information by older people seems that it makes sense. So question older people when they tell you that it's a natural born instinct. Say, well, how does that occur? Say, well, it's just natural. And if they don't get enough information, they will reject it, but not reject the person. Make them feel inadequate. If you reject a person, they say, listen, little smart aleck, I'm older than you. There's no age priorities. You understand what I mean? Nobody can pull age rank on another person. Say, I'm older than you. You listen to me. I've been exposed to medicine, or I've been exposed to geometry, or I haven't been exposed to it. They know what they know, and they know what they don't know, and they know how not to hurt other people. So they don't hurt their parents, they understand them. They say, I see. When Dad comes off with irrelevant information, they say, that's very interesting. They don't hurt the person. Unless Dad says, what do you think of my information? The child might say, well, it appears inadequate due to the fact that you haven't given me a comprehensive understanding of how something works.
And the higher level of the education, the higher standard of living we all have in the
Yes.
future.
The faster civilization grows, the more adequate the children are, and the broader their exposure to science, meaning all different branches, sociology, psychology, not conventional, the new stuff of the future. And with that, they can approach people and not attack them, make them feel inadequate, even though you'd have to tell them that all people are sincere. They all mean well, but they all don't have the tools you have. He said, how come they didn't give them tools in the old days? Because they didn't know what tools were. They used the best language they had. It's not their fault. So once a child understands that their parents were conditioned in pre-scientific communities, and therefore they have pre-scientific concepts of things, and that would be normal to their background.
Gotcha.
Of course, my parents never asked me any questions. They were brought up not to. They felt older and knowledgeable. They felt adequate, but they were inadequate. They never asked me what I thought of their value system. They can't, because they've never been challenged. Now, if you say, in school they said that all behavior is learned, and your mother says that's foolishness, that means she's locked into a system that rejects that.
If they said that in schools, I'm not quite sure that they are saying that in schools.
And the child comes up in another direction.
Mm-hmm.
And once he gains control, he can educate his parents. And once the parents don't feel that the child is making a jackass of them, once they don't feel the child is using their knowledge in a hostile way, they won't accept it. Does that make sense to you?
Do you know if is there any big Skinnerian colleges that teach that as a part of their regimen?
Yes, some children 5 years old, brought up by their parents for 5 years, are going to be more difficult than getting them as babies.
No, I said, do you think that there's any Skinnerian academic programs out there?
I believe they teach it in
Well, the
universities.
Skinnerians
within
talk
other
around a lot of subjects,
Right.
but the information is not extracted as information.
But at least from a behavioral point of view, it'd be a good thing for people to check out if somebody had a good curriculum in that area.
Yes.
At least they,
Or you make a TV show
yeah.
on Skinnerian behavior, or Adlerian, or Freudian, prior to information, prior to testing things. They came up with a lot of ideas. Freud said that women are penis-oriented. They admire the fact that the male has a penis.
Yeah, penis, right? Envy on the.
Yeah, there's all
It's
kinds
just all
of
the things from the
nonsense.
culture that were going on at the time.
Never mind.
He
You
projected.
can say a girl has a nose culture. You don't want to do that. You don't want to bring that
Nose
up because
envy.
it's irrelevant.
All right. Can we talk about a little bit? I know I asked you about it before, Roxanne, but the script and producer-director type of updates. Any updates on that? We talked about it last month a little bit, but any updates?
Yeah, we put together the first draft of the script, and now it really is a lot of work tweaking it. So it's progressing, and we both like how it's coming along, and we're really pleased with the scriptwriter so far.
So full first draft of the script is done. I mean, there's many steps to still do, but that's really good news.
Yeah, we've seen the first draft, and then we put in our input and gave it back to her, and it'll go up and back many times, and it'll probably go to different people as well.
Fantastic.
But it's coming along, yeah.
All right.
If the child brings up a question that another child can't answer, he says, well, let's do a little work on that and try to find out. Let's do some they know how to do research. They know how to find out that a person cannot evolve a language on their own without imitating some of the words. A person tends to reflect their environment. Even if the birds sing, they make noises like a bird to talk about different animals. Grr, or whatever it is, the sound that the animal makes. Or if the wind blows their hair around, they will evolve a language related to that. But the natives speak about things they know about only, and that is food. They say good, taboo, don't eat it. This is good. If they eat it and they know, then they talk about it. And they talk about the things that affect them in the environment. They don't name mountains, primitive people. Or unless there's one big mountain, they'll name it, whatever they call it. Boo-boo, that's a mountain. And if everybody's brought up in that community, they call a mountain boo-boo. Language evolves.
I wanted to bring up something that was just asked. Do you think that everything is picked up within your environment? Is there anything inborn in terms of
Yes.
behavior?
If children have pain, whatever the reason is, they may cry. That is, the ability to cry is part of the rig.
People have a certain range of behavior
Yes,
due
they
to
have
their
a certain
physical
range
rig.
of innate behavior. And then as they move away from pain, but if they don't know what pain is, they'll reach for fire. And then after it burns them,
That's all tropisms, right? I mean,
yeah, there are
essentially.
different types of human tropisms.
Because you could cut an arm off and it'll still pull back from fire, right?
Yes.
I heard that somewhere. You said they were.
Well, the intestines will move an object along with this type of motion. But eye reflex, when you throw something at the eye, it comes down the eyelid. But if it's fast enough, it doesn't come down. It only comes down if it's within the range of the eyelash.
I don't know. I think there's many factors. With anything you're talking about, there's much more than meets the eye.
Yes.
And a lot of people take the easy route and just make assumptions or use dogmatic type of things to address a
And
subject. Yeah,
their own
projection.
values.
Yeah, instead
But a lot of
doing
this
the
is,
research.
is to just get a discussion going with people. They wouldn't even think about these
No.
things.
They
They wouldn't
don't-
even just, if they can at least discuss it, they can kick it around.
Yeah, they can't do that even. You have to give them a new set, a new outlook, and
A set of
in a
tools.
way that where you don't stand up and put a medal on yourself, where you don't show any ego, you just share your ideas. I think one way that helped me was I used to think like you did at one time. Identification helps. I used to think just like you did.
Mhm.
I used to feel some people were lazy, some people worked hard, and they deserve what they get because they worked hard for it. But you can't say some people are conditioned to work hard, some people are not. They won't get that because it's not within their vocabulary or background.
Well, that's one of the things I was talking about. You talk about tools, and I'm
Projection.
interested in labeling those tools and then starting an educational system based on teaching those tools to people. One of them is the obvious one is perspective, which you do a lot in your drawings. You try to teach people perspective.
And to bring out the meaningless words,
Mm.
like John is good.
Well,
What
a
do you
major
mean
tool
by
would be
good?
communication, yes.
What about
Semantics.
what about rational? The word rational.
Be thrown out.
It would, wouldn't it?
A lot of words that are described in a dictionary are described differently in different dictionaries.
What word would you use instead of rational?
The person tested something,
Yeah.
put it to test, and found out that a propeller this size does not pull an airplane. It has to be larger and turned by at least 100 horsepower. They will talk that way. But they won't say that.
But you can't say, let's have a rational
You
discussion.
can't do that. You have to train them in rational discussion.
I usually
That's
mean
the
see it
nearest
my
thing to
way.
The nearest thing to teach people is how pulley wheels reduce the weight of an object. You have to pull this 10 times to move a heavy object 1 foot. You have to pull the rope many times.
There was a guy, have you been to Coral Castle?
Yes,
Have you heard all the stuff they say about how
Oh,
he
yeah.
moved it around?
yes.
And people come here, and they also are going to go. A lot of people that come to the tours, because they fly into Miami, so they want to do something unusual in the area. They go there, and they buy into that shit that he somehow levitated these big stones.
Yeah.
Like, come
Just
on.
say I don't know how he does it.
But when you
But-
do pulleys and things, and you just show them books like
No.
about the pyramids,
Yeah,
how they
we
did
can
that.
show them a lot of stuff. You have to educate them over again, just like a new language.
Well, that's one of the tools I was talking about, or a prerequisite to understanding things would be
Yes.
an accurate history.
Show
Of
movies of
humans.
what the guy's talking about, so kids don't imagine something else.
Okay. I mean, specifically, you're talking about slavery. If people knew more specifically the roots of actual slavery, they might be a little bit, have a different attitude on it.
That's where automation comes in.
Hmm.
You don't need human slaves.
Yeah.
Automated slaves, a phonograph record will play a record, a phonograph. If you wind it up or plug it in, it'll play that record. It doesn't argue with you. It doesn't say you heard it 3 times already. It doesn't get angry no matter how many times. And if you drop the needle on the record hard, the record doesn't say ouch. It doesn't respond to you. So people can get very crude with things.
What do you think about the concept that we've actually never gotten rid of slavery? We've simply moved it from one position to another, one
Very
race to
good.
another, and now we're moving it to robots and automation.
What's your
and cyber-
definition of slavery? See, you're going to come into a definition problem.
Okay. Yeah. Did you know Japan's population actually decreased this year? Yes, decreased. How could this happen? Is humanity doomed? Does that mean that we'll eventually depopulate ourselves? Oh wait, because of Fukushima? No, it's not due to Fukushima. Although that might have influenced some couples to not reproduce, it does not account for the total population decrease. Japan has an industrialized and relatively highly educated population. The theory is that as regions become more educated and standards of living go up, the number of children born to each household decreases. North America averages 2 to 3 children, with Canada averaging just over 1. The Middle East averages 3 to 4 children, and Africa averages 5 to 6 children. Now, quick math shows that if you have 2 humans and they create an average of 2 humans, then population will not increase or decrease. Actually, that's not correct. Using that scenario of 2 children per couple, population will still tend to decrease due to child mortality and adult deaths. What you notice in the situations of North America, the Middle East, and Africa is that North America has more overall education and higher standards of living. Lower birth rates follow this trend. There's one thing I forgot to mention. By far the highest contributor to lower birth rates is educated and free women. Unfortunately, many countries still subjugate women, treat them as lesser humans, and in some places they physically mutilate women due to cultural norms. It is no wonder that in Africa, where women are arguably the least educated and most abused, that there is the highest birth rate in the world. This is a direct example of the root cause of many global problems: lack of education and blind adherence to outdated social norms. This example demonstrates what many have already predicted, and that is, with higher levels of education and a higher standard of living, where families do not need to depend upon their children to run the farm or be traded into marriage, human reproduction slows down. Using this reason, if we educate and raise the standards of living, population growth will slow down, and we can breathe a sigh of relief that we are not going to overpopulate this planet. By the way, this is exactly what the Venus Project proposes with a resource-based economy: a well-educated world population who all have higher standards of living and an awareness that their actions do affect the globe. This inevitably leads towards lower birth rates. In fact, Jacques has even mentioned that the Earth doesn't need more than 100,000 people. Now, at first glance, this sounds scary, but understanding what I just explained, what Jacques means is that humanity over a long period of time may decide to have less and less children, and eventually will choose to sustain itself at 100,000 humans. This does not mean that Jacques intends for there to be only 100,000. It is his projection of what humanity might choose for itself long into the future. I know many people who have chosen not to have children, and they were not forced. No one has tricked them. They simply made a choice based on their attitudes and circumstances. One last thing. The notion of overpopulation due to the number of humans on Earth growing exponentially is false, due to some simple math of the actual room we have on Earth and the amount of resources we have if used efficiently. The Earth can sustain many times the current number it has on it now. The issue is not room, it is the practical application of technology and the efficient use of resources. But that is for another time. I hope this cleared up some things for you. Bye for now.
Hello everybody, my name is Tyler Wade from Veterans for the Venus Project, and I'm here to tell you about this year's 2013 CNN Heroes Nomination event. If you could, go to facebook.com/Veterans for the Venus Project. You can nominate Jacques and Roxanne for this year's CNN Hero. Please take the time to do so and make sure that the Venus Project gets the recognition it deserves. Thank you.
Something look wrong here? Over here, maybe? I don't know what it is. We need help. If you want to help us out, email admin@thevenusproject.com or find me on Skype, Sean.Hodgins1. Thanks a lot.
Blah, blah, blah.
Test. And put the microphone here. Light test one, light test one, light test one. Ooh. sometimes 300 listens per week. Pretty good. But 1 year later, we were able to move this whole thing to the Google Hangouts, which was then live streamed to YouTube. And immediately we got 1,000 views, which is a huge improvement, tenfold improvement increase. Later on, we got 1,500 views on a weekly basis, and now we're up to closer to 2,000 views per week, which is obviously an improvement. Even last week's show is already at 2,500 views, so we're working on it. And as you can tell by this show, I'm constantly changing the formats, I'm constantly testing new things out, and a lot of the effects you'll see in this show are going to be similar to one of the 4 formats that I want to move this show towards. And I'll list them more in the description. And the last one is something similar that you see right here, and that is RBE News. And I want to get a green screen. I want to use a better camera. We need updated camera, we need green screen, we need lights. We have some software that can take care of it. We probably need a much better computer to handle these types of things. So those are the 4 formats. The Panelists, or Jacques and Roxanne, is one show. POC Q&As, every first Sunday of the month. Educational video, 1 time per month. That's on behaviorism, or something like that. And then finally RBE News, and that's a full news style format that this one, I would say is about. Alright, so the 4 formats of the shows, obviously Jacques and Roxanne, when they're able to come on, we want to host them. And also the Panelists, the Google Hangouts, where you have panelists talk about a specific topic within the resource-based economy or the Venus Project. The second format is the POC Q&A, and you'll see that 1 time per month. It's the first Sunday of each month is when they put on their POC Q&A, and that is done by a Google moderator where the community asks questions and the POCs are getting a very good practice at answering them, and obviously the people are getting the responses. The third format of a show is a specific educational video, and that's going to be on behaviorism, scaling, perspective, accurate history. This week's show will cover news and updates, part 2 of my visit to the Venus Project, and a new segment called Did You Know? For news and updates this week, we have 2 things. First is show formats, this show. This all started in TeamSpeak about 2 years ago, and it was all audio based. No video, no effects, nothing like that. And we were getting 50 to 100